All right, the grand finale, college football episode here on Beef Up Front, parlayed with the college basketball weekend preview, going a little bit out of chronological order, but we'll hit the big one first. Joe, your Notre Dame Fighting Irish, after a awesome win over Penn State, they move on to the national championship. Will they be playing number 8 Ohio State? So the first ever 12-team playoff. You don't have 1 versus 2. I think that's kind of cool right there as well. You got number 7 Notre Dame at 14-1, lost to Northern Illinois, very well documented, but in the past, their season's over from there. They had the chance to kind of rebound. They make the most of their second chance, their opportunity, make a run here all the way to the title game, knocking off Georgia and Penn State in the meantime. Number 8 Ohio State on the redemption tour after, a awesome game at the beginning of the season to Oregon. That probably wouldn't have ruined their season right there. They probably still would have had a decent chance to at least make the playoff if this was the old format. Then they go in the last game of the season, though, and lose to Michigan, and their season would have definitely been done based off the season Michigan had. But Ohio State, a team that has 9 lives as well this year. They're at 13-2, and they've been the best team so far in the playoffs. So everyone's kind of saying that this is going to be a dominating, overwhelmingly Ohio State game. I don't really know if I'm buying that, but we'll get into all that and more. But Joe, welcome back. How are we? And how do you feel that you have the potential to be a champion for once in your life on Saturday or on Monday night?
I mean, I feel fantastic. From a football standpoint, I have, the Jets have not won, and the Irish have not won a national championship. I've been lucky enough to see UConn men's basketball get 5 in my lifetime because I was born in November of '99. But I remember watching 5 national championship games for UConn. That's great. But football is my favorite sport. The 2 teams I root for, I was going to say both fucking suck, but the Notre Dame hasn't sucked. They just have been like, the good, not great. They got there in 2012 and got embarrassed. They got to the playoff twice in the 14 format and got smacked. And now this year in the 12-team playoff, one of the reasons why everyone wanted it was because it felt like there were more teams besides the top 4 that were good enough to win a national championship. And this proved it right here. Notre Dame would have been 5. Ohio State would have been 6. If you just went 1 through 12 and, the 14 playoff format, these 2 teams probably would have been playing in like the Fiesta Bowl on New Year's Day. You would have had opt-outs and stuff, and it wouldn't have been as, big of a game. Now you're playing in the national championship game. I think even though Ohio State, lost to Oregon and Michigan, and Notre Dame lost to Northern Illinois, these are the 2 best teams in college football, which is crazy to say for Notre Dame considering the fact that all the injuries they have. But ever since they lost to Northern Illinois, which is, not a loss you can just say, good team, because they weren't. They finished, I think, 7-6, did win the Potato Bowl. So shout out to Northern Illinois. But, I mean, it's just been an incredible turnaround. I mean, it's crazy the fact that I get to watch Notre Dame in a national title game that I feel like we actually have a shot in. 2012 was cool. And I was still in middle school, I was still a little bit naive, like, oh, yeah, we're in the national title game. But almost right after kickoff, I was like, well, this game is over. And that sucked to watch. But now, seeing Notre Dame in a game that is winnable, because at this point, people, a bunch of people have been texting me and stuff like, oh, awesome, you guys made it, but, Ohio State, they look so good. It's not the first time that a team has been an underdog in a championship game. Like, people are acting like, 8.5 point spread, Ohio State, don't even bother watching the game. It's like, what are you talking about? We've seen multiple championships with, bigger point spreads, large spreads and stuff, and we've seen underdogs win. So, and I'm at the point, like, we saw Ohio State more recently look vulnerable than we have Notre Dame. We saw what happened against Michigan. Like, I know that's a rivalry game, and I know, they were trying to win in a certain way, but Notre Dame defensively has proven they can hang with any team in the country. And I keep saying, I'm worried about the offense. I'm worried about the offense. Well, the defense leads the country in takeaways. And if they can do that again and the special teams, keeps going the way they go, there's no reason why Notre Dame can't win this game.
Yeah, and when you go back to as well, like Ohio State in that game against Texas, outside of like that first drive, they didn't look like the Ohio State that we saw against Tennessee and that we saw against Oregon. Like, that was a 21-14 game. Texas had the ball
Yep.
into the goal-to-go situation, and Jack Sawyer winds up getting the fumble recovery and taking it back to the house. And that's, instead of a tie game or still staying at a 7-point game, it's a 2-score game. Like, it completely flips on his head there. So I think Ohio State is definitely beatable in this spot. But I guess when you're looking at it from, Ohio State's perspective, as kind of we did last game, Joe, what's the key to winning the national championship on Monday night?
I mean, I kind of alluded to it when I was talking about Notre Dame defensively. It's don't turn the ball over. The one thing Notre Dame has done, and the biggest actually key to this game for both of these teams, is the middle eight, they call it. The last 4 minutes of the second quarter and the first 4 minutes of the third quarter. I think Notre Dame and Ohio State are both like top 5 or 10 in the scoring differential in that like middle eight. If you can win that, because we saw Notre Dame at the end of the first half of the Georgia game, they forced a turnover, scored a touchdown, and then they returned the opening kickoff. All of a sudden, I think it was 17 points in a like 56 seconds of game time span or something like that. It was crazy. If whoever wins that, and if Ohio State can, limit the turnovers and not let Notre Dame, win that middle eight, they should be able to win the game, because at the end of the day, on paper, there's a reason why they are 8.5-point favorites.
I'm going to say my key for Ohio State to win this one is put your foot on the gas and keep it there. Like, if you have the ability to get up 7-0, 14-0 early, if you have the ability to have that kind of first drive like they did against Texas and then get some points up on the board and just be off to the races from there, do that. Like, don't slow it down and get cute, find ways to run the ball, run trick plays or whatever. Like, keep your foot on their neck, because Marcus Freeman has shown the ability to make good adjustments at halftime. He's shown to be a very good in-game coach. He can kind of turn around and fix things. And it comes back to, as well, Will Howard has thrown key interceptions before. Like, you saw the Michigan game. You saw even the Penn State game during the beginning of the season or in the middle of the year. He had the key pick six in that one. He has a quarterback that can turn the football over. So there's no room for kind of slowing down in this one. You got to just keep your foot on the gas at all points and not look back, because one Will Howard throw, one bad screen, one fumble, Notre Dame could get back into this game in the blink of an eye. So they've shown the propensity to maybe ease up a little bit at times. I think that they have to kind of get away from that in this spot. So Ohio State, full gas on the throttle for 48 minutes or 60 minutes in this one, whatever it is. Notre Dame, Joe, key for them to win it all.
I mean, I know I'm going to sound like a broken record, but it's continue to force turnovers. And that's going to be how you win the game. That's how they did it against Penn State. They made Drew Aller have a ton of mistakes. If you can force turnovers, if you can get to the quarterback, we talked about it last week, and I was a little bit incorrect on my statement. The first 2 games, Ohio State allowed 0 sacks. If you can get to the quarterback, if you can force turnovers, you will have a chance to win this football game. At the end of the day, that's been the key for Notre Dame all season long. I think they now have 33 forced turnovers. That leads the FBS, I think, by a pretty solid amount as well. And really, the question is, will Howard turn back into Kansas State? Will Howard, who was good, but not, he's looked great at times this season. And if you can get pressure on the quarterback, force a couple turnovers, you can win this game. And Riley Leonard just has to keep finding ways to make a play. There have been so many times where it seems like Riley Leonard is going to be dead. He's going to be sacked. He'll either break a tackle and slip away for a couple-yard gain, or he'll dump it off to a running back. And it won't look pretty, but it'll get the job done, and it'll get a first down. So Notre Dame, if they can do all of that, they have a real good chance to win the national championship.
Yeah, I think Notre Dame, they need to get a couple explosive plays in the passing games. That is what I'm kind of looking at, because I think if you're just going to rely on the running game and Riley Leonard and Jeremiah Love, who's been banged up, but kind of that stable of Notre Dame backs, it's going to be easy for this Ohio State defense, I think, to kind of shut them down. Penn State had the pretty good blueprint early on. But when Notre Dame, and it was kind of funny when Angeli went in there, they started dropping back and throwing the football a little bit and saw some success. If Riley Leonard's able to do that and kind of just keep this Ohio State defense honest, that is their best bet in this one. But I'm really looking forward for, can they hit a play or two over the top? Like, that was the game-changing play when they had that deep kind of pass. I know it was off a missed tackle, but that's kind of all it takes, a big play like that to be able to strike quick, because that's what we know Ohio State's going to do. Notre Dame's probably going to play too high and try and keep them from beating them over the top and beating them deep. But Ohio State is a quick strike offense, whether it's on the ground or a screen or a deep pass. They have the guys that can take it 70 to 75 yards at any given moment. So those are the things I'm kind of looking for there. Can Notre Dame strike on some explosive plays? Because I think they're going to have to match Ohio State every once in a while there. But, Joe, the time is now for your pick. It is an 8.5-point spread as of now. Ohio State a favorite. 846.5 is the total. 7:30 kick on Monday night. ESPN down in Atlanta for the Peach Bowl. National champion, first ever 12-team playoff. Is it the Notre Dame Fighting Irish or the Ohio State Buckeyes?
Give me the Catholics, 23-17. I have Notre Dame pulling the upset. I have them winning the national championship game. All I've been hearing since Friday night, I had people texting me during the game on Friday. One of Nora's cousins texted me. He goes, awesome Notre Dame's in the title, but you got to be sitting there as a Notre Dame fan watching this, Ohio State team and just saying, fuck. I'm like, I don't know. Like, they're very talented, but at this point, anything can happen. We've gotten through a 12-team playoff. Notre Dame beat Georgia, who Georgia had on paper more talent than they did. Penn State had more talent than Notre Dame did. And now you're in the national championship game. I think Marcus Freeman is an excellent coach. He has proved this. He has those guys believing, and I think that Notre Dame is going to win the national championship. 23-17, going to take the under, going to take Notre Dame plus the 8.5.
All right. I'm not going to go as far to say that Notre Dame's going to win, but I do like them to keep it within the number. But I am not like as you're saying, some of these other people are overwhelmingly confident in Ohio State. The Ohio State that I saw for 8 quarters against Tennessee and against Oregon, yes, I think that they would run this Notre Dame team out. But I heard some people saying, like, this has the makings of the next potential Georgia TCU. And I just think Notre Dame is too tough, like, mentally and physically to let that happen. I think Marcus Freeman is too good of a coach. The way that Ohio State can make this a blowout, it sounds kind of stupid, but it's if they make this a high-scoring game. Like, if they want to go track meet, like, all right, Notre Dame, if you're going to beat us, you got to beat us 56-49, something like that. If they get into that game, Ohio State, I think, can run away with it. But if Notre Dame plays a special teams angle, plays a defense angle, keeps control of the ball, runs the football, doesn't turn the football over, they can very well make this a game just like they have all season. They're a very good team. Since that Northern Illinois game, I've been saying it all year, you can make an argument that Notre Dame has been the best team in the country. Week in, week out, they've just shown up and dominated teams. Last week was a close one against Penn State, and the week before that was against Georgia was a close game. But every other game has been a pretty dominating win from that Northern Illinois game to now. So I think Notre Dame has a real chance to pull off the upset, but I am going to go Ohio State. I think just top to bottom, their roster talent's a little bit too much, but I won't be surprised at all if Notre Dame finds a way to win this game. So I will take them to cover the 8.5 there, and I will take the over of 46.5 just hitting there by the hook. But, Joe, that'll wrap it up for college football for the year. Hoping for a great game on Monday night. Very excited to dive into that and see what happens. But as soon as Monday night's done, I feel like we've said this a bunch, but there's no more excuses, no turning back from there. You have a ton of college basketball coming on the way. But we kind of go back in time now. We go back to Saturday, where Saturday, not as loaded of a slate as we've seen the past couple weeks, but still some really good games. And it starts off, I think, with the best one of the weekend down in the SEC. Such a great SEC season we've had so far. But number 4, Alabama at 14-3 travels to number 8, Kentucky, who's also 14-3. Noon tip on ESPN. Kentucky projected on Haslam to win this one 88-87. So real close one. We'll go Kentucky -1.5, over under 174.5.
Yeah, and I'm going to go Kentucky here, 91-88. I think it's going to be a very high-scoring game. I'll go with the Wildcats. I'll take them, -1.5. I'm going to go with the over in this game. Bama coming off a tough loss at home to Ole Miss. I'm very interested to see if they're able to bounce back on the road.
I'm going to go with Bama as well. you said it best, like the bounce back on the road spot here. That was a tough loss this week at Ole Miss. Kentucky has been, since SEC play started, and everyone is, but they've looked a little bit more vulnerable. Alabama, I think, and Kentucky, they play similar styles, but I think this Alabama team is more experienced, has more experience playing this specific style. Like, you don't want to play your master, your teacher in the same kind of style, the same kind of fight. And I think these two teams are a little bit too similar. I think Bama has been playing against this kind of style for the past 3 to 4 years, whatever it is in practice under Nate Oates. I think they just have a little bit too much in this one. But I could see these being the best two teams in the SEC by the season's end, right up there, as well with Auburn. But I'm going to go with Alabama to win this game, 92-88. So Bama plus 1.5 over 174.5. All right, we go up to UConn now. Joe, number 14, UConn 13-4. They're hosting 11-6 Creighton. Do or die time potentially for Creighton. They need a big time resume win. Another noon tip on Fox. UConn projected to win here 75-71. So UConn minus 3.5, over under 145.5.
So I'm going to go UConn in this game, 73-67. It is kind of do or die time for Creighton, sitting at 11-6. It is still early in the conference here. You still have some big East games as the season's rolling along here. But it is $2 beer day up in stores. So unfortunately for the Creighton Blue Jays, I think they're fucked. Last year when they went up there for and it was $2 beer day, I think UConn beat them like 80 something to like 58. Like they blew them out. I think this game is going to be pretty close because, like you said, Coyle, it is do or die time. So I'm going 73-67. UConn getting the win here at home. And Creighton is going to be a real fascinating team. A lot of teams in the Big East this year are going to be very interesting. They're going to be hovering around, that last 4 in, first 4 out, bubble.
Are you going to this game?
I will not be going to this game, unfortunately. I will not be there this weekend.
Yeah, Big East is weird. I know they weren't having a great year, but I was surprised to see last night, Seton Hall's now 6-11. How many slam dunk Big East teams are there? Marquette, UConn, is that it for absolute guarantees?
Absolute guarantees.
St. John's is right there.
They're 15-3. They should be good. But after those 3, you're looking at, Georgetown's off to a hot start at 12-5, but they're 3-3 in the Big East. And even just from a talent perspective, it's going to be probably Nova, Creighton, and then Georgetown's going to be the team scrapping. I could kind of, close my eyes and envision, it's conference championship week. Georgetown, they're saying if Georgetown can win 2, maybe even a 3rd game and get to the Big East, final, maybe they can get a bubble spot. But, I think it'll be those 3 teams at the top, and then you're going to have Creighton Nova fighting. I'm going to make a prediction. Big East gets 4 teams this year, and I think it'll either be Creighton or Villanova for that 4th spot.
Yeah, it's a weird spread too. In the past few years, the analytics have really loved UConn, and for them to only be a 3.5-point favorite here, it's a little bit weird, especially at home. I am going to still take them to win and to cover, but I do like the desperation kind of angle of Creighton, where time's starting to run out. It's not the non-conference anymore. You got to start winning these games and getting these big wins when you can. If UConn comes back to Creighton, I'm not sure if that's on the schedule for this year. I'm sure it has a decent chance of it, but that has to be a must-win spot. And you have to find a way to kind of steal some of these games, but I just don't see UConn losing this one, a Saturday home game, probably the first Saturday game with all students back on campus as well, I would assume, Joe.
Yeah, they're all moving back up this weekend. And it's going to be a zoo up there.
Yeah, so I'll go UConn with the home court advantage here, 71-67. UConn minus 3.5, and I will take under 145.5 there. All right, we go to the Big 12 now, staying at noon. CBS Sports Network. Number 10, Houston at 13-3. Starting to look like the old Houston that we've seen in the past few years. At UCF, who is 12-4. Houston projected to win this one, 79-60. A stranglehold there on defense still in Houston. 18.5-point favorite, over under 138.5.
Yeah, I'm going to go Houston here pretty comfortably, 75-60. I'm just going to take UCF to cover. If you're going to give me 18.5, UCF getting Houston, a team they're familiar with from their, back in the day of the American Athletic Conference. I think the fans will show up for that one. Um, you know, UCF is another team, that's going to be hovering around the bubble. That'll be interesting. Now that I'm starting to shift more in my college basketball mode, you're starting to identify some of these teams you think can make a run. And I mean, this is a really crazy stretch coming up for UCF over the next four. You have Houston, at Iowa State, home against TCU, and at Kansas, your next four games. So we're going to know an awful lot about this UCF team in about a week and a half. But I think they'll be able to cover the number. I just don't think they'll be able to get through Houston defensively.
Yeah, Houston's back to kind of having their stranglehold in. Kelvin Sampson said it at the beginning of the year. It was like, we don't really have that guy that we've had in the past. They haven't had that Jamal Shed presence, but they've really started to round together and form together better as a team. And anytime you're projected to hold a Big 12 team to 60 points, according to the metrics, that's impressive. I think they're going to hold them under that. I really like the under in this game. Never easy to play this Houston team, but I will say 18.5 points is a lot. UCF kind of finds a way to keep it within that number, but Houston wins pretty comfortably. I go 72-58. So UCF plus 18.5, under 138.5. All right, maybe the most disappointing team in college basketball, and this is a team that I haven't even heard about this year, Joe. I haven't seen them on TV. They've just been completely swept under the rug, flying under the radar. And they've been one of my favorite teams to watch the past few years. I know that with the portal and NIL and everything, you got guys coming in and out, not much continuity. But Jerome Tang and Kansas State have been such a fun watch over the past few years. And the run to the Elite Eight, they've just been awesome. And for them to be 7-9 this year, looking like nowhere near a tournament team, been a very disappointing year because I know that they have a lot of high NIL guys on that roster as well. But this is still always an awesome game. It's usually a little bit more fun at Kansas State. I think that's one of my just favorite gyms in college basketball to watch, even on TV. But 7-9 Kansas State travels to number 9 Kansas, who's 12-4, coming off a loss at Iowa State last night. 1 o'clock tip on CBS. Kansas projected to win 78-59. So it goes to show you how bad things have gone for Kansas State this year. 18.5 point favorite, over under 136.5.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Kansas here, 81-59. I think they're going to smash Kansas State. I'm going with Kansas minus the 18.5. I am going to take the over in this game of 136.5 because I think Kansas is going to do a lot of that on their own. We've seen it with Bill Self over the years. I mean, they just got embarrassed against Iowa State. I know that was at Iowa State. That's a massive win for Iowa State as a program going forward. But now Kansas is getting a chance to come back home, play one of their arch rivals who is definitely having a down year at Coyle. I cut out quickly, but when I came back in, I heard you, kind of talking about how the past couple of years Kansas State has been, a lot of fun to watch. And, you're very shocked, and I am as well, with how bad they've been this year. I mean, you went out, you get Coleman Hawkins, from the portal. You're expecting Kansas State to be a much more competitive team, but you're sitting there at 7-9, a complete non-factor in the Big 12. Just, and the country, the national title picture as a whole, it is kind of depressing to see. So I think Kansas is going to get the job done here at home.
Yeah, I like Kansas to win as well. Kansas has been, I know they're still sitting here at 12-4 and 9 in the country, but I was expecting them to be a juggernaut, like a team that lost 2 to 3 games all year in the regular season, be the clear-cut best team in the Big 12, and they haven't been that either. And we're going to just, I think, continue to see that more and more in today's age. When you bring so many new guys on a roster continuity is going to matter, and it's really going to be a lot more about what teams have been together longer, and it goes back to that. That's how it's been for a while, but with ever-changing rosters, it's going to be more so, it's cliche, but who's really a team and not just a collection of talent. And I think that's what this Kansas team might be. Bill Self just went out and bought the players that he could, got the collection of talent that he wanted, but not really a good group together. And it's hard to tell that all at once when you're infiltrating so many people into a new lineup. So Kansas has been a disappointment. Still plenty of time, obviously, half their season to go, kind of to make a run here. But I do like them to win this game at home. And Kansas State, just the disappointing, as I said at the beginning, but I will take them to cover. Rivalry game here. Always find a way to keep it somewhat close. Kansas 70-60. I'll go. So Kansas State plus 18.5 and the under of 136.5. Number 1, Auburn at 16-1 travels to number 23, Georgia 14-3. This is just, it's weird. This is a basketball matchup. This is something that you would thought was a football game like 10 years ago, but a 1:00 tip on SEC Network. Auburn 78-66 is a projection. So we'll go Auburn minus 11.5, over under 144.5.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Georgia here to pull off the upset, 71-70. So I'll take them to cover that 11.5 at home. I'm going to go with the under here. Simply, this is just an Auburn team that's in a really tough spot schedule-wise. You just smashed Mississippi State. Now you have to go on the road to Georgia, but you have a matchup with Tennessee coming up, who's number 6 in the country, who's going to be one of those teams that's competing for the SEC title, along with Auburn. So I'm going to kind of go with the trap spot here. Also, it's so stupid to say, but it just seems like Auburn's due for a loss. You had a close call on the road at Texas and at South Carolina. Now you got to go to Georgia, who I think is better than both of those teams. And I think they're just kind of due to catch a loss here real close. I do still think Auburn is one of, if not the best team in the country, though, even if they lose this game.
Yeah, it could definitely be a trap spot. Janai Broom as well, I believe, will be out for this game. But he was out the other night at Mississippi State, and they beat up on a really good Mississippi State team. So maybe this Auburn team is just that good. I'm going to trust them here in this spot to win. I will take Georgia to cover. 11.5 there is a lot. I don't even think that will be the real number. I'll say it's probably more like 7.5 range. But I'm going to go Georgia plus 11.5, over 144.5. Won't lie, I haven't seen much of Georgia this year. It's a game that I am looking forward to sitting down and tuning into to see more of them. I've seen Auburn probably the most of any team I've watched, and it's a fun, exciting, athletic team. They get up and down, play offense and defense. Fun watch, but I'm excited to see what this Georgia team is made of. And I saw on TV the other day, and sorry if you said this if I didn't hear you, but I think I saw it was like, this is Georgia's first time being ranked in a decade, and they had to go to Tennessee, and now they have to host Auburn. Like, congrats for that. 2 potential losses there. But if they find a way to win here, they'll definitely stay in the top 25. But I do like Auburn to find a way to win this game. Are we going to do the Big Ten now? Number 17, Purdue, 14-4. At number 13, Oregon, who is 15-2. 3:00 tip on NBC. Purdue projected to win 72-71. So go Purdue minus 1.5, over under 142.5. A lot of close spreads this week, Joe.
Yeah, Coyle. And those are, that's what you want as a sports fan. You want a lot of these games projected to be close. You want to have a lot of good games. So hopefully, that'll deliver along with, we're going to have 2 divisional games on Saturday for the NFL. But this is the last weekend where you're going to have NFL on Saturdays, football at all on Saturdays. Weekend after is AFC, NFC title games. Then obviously, in 2 weeks we have the Super Bowl. But, now is a real good time. If you have
the Super Bowl.
The Coyle is very confident in his birds. I hope so for Benavides, because if not, he will be homeless. But I'm going to go with Oregon here, 75-73. I think they're going to win a close one at home. And so I'm going to go with Oregon plus 1.5. I'm going to go over 142.5. I'll keep it short and sweet.
All right. I will go with Oregon as well here at home. I'm going to take them 76-70. So Oregon plus 1.5, over 142.5. Just going to keep it simple here as well, Joe. Home team in this spot. Not that big of a fan of this Purdue team. And Oregon at 15-2, another team that great record, but I haven't really got to watch them that much. Going to just keep it simple. The home team is going to win this one. We go to the SEC now. Number 6, Tennessee at 16-1 travels to Vandy at 14-3. 3:30 tip on SEC Network. Tennessee projected win here 72-66. So Tennessee minus 5.5, over under 138.5.
So I'm going to go with Tennessee here, 80-73. I will take the Vols, a minus 5.5. I'm going to go with the over 138.5. I mean, this is a Vandy team that is, hasn't really been that great in a while. So it's great to see them, with a real good record to start here, a real player for making the NCAA tournament. But I think Tennessee is just a much better team at the end of the day. Once again, not a whole lot of analysis, but I just think end of the day, I'm taking the better team to win, even in a rivalry game like this.
Yeah, the Vandy record is a bit of a facade. I think right now, I think we're going to look back and sitting here at 14-3, they might be the bottom team in the SEC.
Kind of like the
Really,
Ole Miss of last year. I apologize, cutting you off.
yeah, I'm kind of surprised to see the spread only as this. Like Tennessee, obviously, is a much more dominant team at home. Uh, but I think this is a game that they go in there and beat up on Vandy pretty easy. Like I think Vandy, the coach Bigginton from James Madison, he's going to have this team, back to being a competitive team, like competing for 7 to 10 seeds in that range at Vandy because they've got money down there too. Like that's a school that without NIL, especially in basketball, I think is going to be able to do decently well just because they have rich and famous alumni and it's kind of back on a even playing field a little bit there. But I just don't see them. They're not there yet. It's going to take still a little bit of time. I think Tennessee is just, as Tennessee's been in college basketball, a little overpowering, just still too many grown men. So I'm going to go with Tennessee in this one, 76-70. Tennessee minus 5.5 over 138.5. All right, we go to the Big 12 now. To Iowa State at 15-1, at West Virginia 12-4. 5 o'clock tip on ESPN Plus. Iowa State projected to win here 71-64. So go Iowa State minus 6.5 over under 134.5.
A shame this game is on ESPN Plus because Morgantown will be rocking. You get the number 2 team in the country, a team that will be, potentially, depending on what happens over the weekend, if they win this game, could be fighting for the number 1, ranking in the country. But that being said, I'm going to go with West Virginia here, 74-70. I've kind of was talking about it earlier with some of these games. I mean, this is just a tough spot for Iowa State. You come off a game where you dominate Kansas at home. And Coyle, you and I talk about it all the time. When you beat one of the premier brands of your conference, in the Big 12's case, it is Kansas, and you smack them at home, you are on top of the world. I don't
Mm-hmm.
care how disciplined your coach has you. You're walking around like your shit don't stink because you think you're the best team in the country, which is good. I love that, but I think that overconfidence, you're playing a West Virginia team that in a tough Big 12 is going to want every win they can get. And you get the number 2 team in America coming to town. That is a massive resume booster and a win that will help push the needle and then will give you some wiggle room to, if you were to drop a couple of games, you don't have to be as nervous in terms of making the NCAA tournament. So I'm going to go with West Virginia here, 74-70.
I'm riding the same wave as you, Kmetz. I'm going against McClay's Cyclones. I'm going with West Virginia in this one, 70-65. I agree. This is the perfect fall flat spot. And you can say what you want about Iowa State. You could say, like, they view themselves as a top tier program, as an elite program now, to the point where a win like that, obviously, it still means a lot being Kansas, but it's not going to be the win that completely knocks you off your high horse and you're just kind of cruising from there. You can say that this is still a motivated Iowa State team, but it's a very big spot for West Virginia, and a West Virginia team that doesn't have the greatest resume, still with a nice 12-4 record, but needs some big wins and needs some quality wins. They need Tucker DeVries back in the lineup as well and be able to come back and do what he does for that West Virginia team. But I think that's a perfect kind of letdown spot, fall flat spot after that big win over Kansas on Wednesday night. So I'm going to go West Virginia to win outright as well, 70-65, plus 6.5 and over 134.5. All right, 2 games left, one on Saturday night and one on Sunday afternoon. 21 Ole Miss at 15-2, at number 15 Mississippi State 14-3. 6 o'clock tip on ESPN2. Mississippi State projected to win 75-72. So Mississippi State minus 2.5 over under 146.5.
So I'm going to go Mississippi State, a little bit lower scoring. However, I'm going to go 69-65. I'll take Mississippi State minus 2.5. I'm going to go under 146.5. This is Mississippi State team. I was talking about going into that Kentucky game I was very high on last Friday night at my girlfriend's house, talking to her brother. And I'm like, I'm going to take a long shot team to win the national title. I'm looking at odds because Connecticut, you can't bet national champs in college basketball because we're a stupid state. And I'm like, Mississippi State 50-1 place. They immediately go on to lose their next 2 games, and the price is probably a lot better now than I got it at. But I still like this Mississippi State team. Right now they're sitting, according to ESPN, at number 8 in the SEC, and they're currently ranked 15th in the country. So that just goes to show you the depth of this SEC. Georgia's sitting at 9th, and they're 23rd in the country. So, I'm not really worried about Mississippi State. I think they're going to bounce back here. You get a big rival at home, and another fall flat spot if you're Ole Miss. You just had a massive win against Alabama. Now you got to go play Mississippi State. And I just think this is a tough trap spot, even in a rivalry game where you're not going to overlook it. I think it's just going to be real tough to win back-to-back games, like that.
Yeah, I agree. Huge spot here for Ole Miss, and kind of like their week was made. Like I guarantee Chris Beard went into I'm not going to say if he went into the locker room into that, but the coach's office, the coaches are discussing, and he's like, if we make it out of this week 1-1, sign me up for that 10 times out of 10. So I don't know if there's as much, pressure, motivation on this game anymore for Ole Miss, but still a rivalry game. But you have to figure there's a little bit of motivation there. But I'm going to go with the home team in the spot, Mississippi State as well, especially after that beat down from Auburn that they had the other night. They're going to be a team playing pissed off, looking to protect their home court. If it's only 2.5, that might be my favorite play on this entire slate this weekend. Give me Mississippi State 70, Ole Miss 60, I'll go 71-68. So they cover the 2.5. So Mississippi State minus 2.5, under 168.5 there. All right, we go to Sunday now, and this is a great way to go into Eagles versus Eagles versus Rams. Shows you where my head's at. But you have number 19 Illinois at 13-4, at number 12 Michigan State 15-2, 12 o'clock on CBS. Eagles kick off at 3. This is a great way to kind of start your day, cure your hangover, maybe grab your first beer and get ready for some championship football or divisional round football on Sunday. But Illinois 77-76 is a projection here on the road. So Illinois minus 1.5, over under 152.5.
Sparty, a quiet 15-2. I feel like in years past, even though, their schedule isn't, oh my God, so far, but I feel like in years past, if Michigan State was 15-2, that would be all ESPN would be talking about, just because of how much, of an impact Izzo has, what it feels like in the media. Everyone loves him. But that being said, I'm going to go with Michigan State here, 83-81. So I'm going to take them plus the 1.5. I'm going to go over 152.5. Illinois coming off the most points allowed by Indiana at home ever. So I think, it's just going to be tough to keep up that scoring back-to-back. Not even a letdown spot, just like I'm going with math here, which, is never a good sign for me. So take Illinois based off of my prediction, but I'm going to go with Sparty here.
I'm going to go with Michigan State as well. Illinois has been – I've seen people make the argument at their peak. You could say what you want about Auburn, you could say what you want about Duke, but Illinois at their peak, when they've been fully healthy, they've arguably been the best team in the entire country this year. And look at the numbers; they speak for themselves. They've been very dominant. But this is finally a legit, seems like Michigan State team. I don't know the last time we've had one of these. It's probably been 5-6 years. I feel like they've been riding the coattails of the brand, the logo, the era of Tom Izzo, whatever you want to call it, the presence of him. If it was Minnesota, they wouldn't be getting treated the same way as Michigan State. They've been given kind of the benefit of the doubt, but this is finally a legit Michigan State team, a young team. Seems like they're fully bought in. This should be an awesome game to kind of get us off to hopefully some really good football on Sunday. I'm going to go Michigan State to win at home here, 80-76. So Michigan State plus 1.5. I'd be shocked if they're actually a dog in this spot, but I'll go with the over 152.5 as well. But, Joe, looking forward to a great weekend of college basketball, and then we got the national title game on Monday night as well. But then we're full-fledged college hoops from there and March Madness about 2 months from today. So looking forward to it. Any last-second comments before we head out?
Yeah, I mean, it is crazy, Coyle. 2 months from today is Selection Sunday, which is already crazy that we're that close. Enjoy a great weekend in sports, you know what I mean? We're going to be sitting here in a couple of months in late April, early May. We're going to be fuck, I would kill for a weekend like this right now in sports. So enjoy this weekend, great NFL games, great slate of college basketball, and, got the national title game on Monday night. It really doesn't get better than this right now.
All right. Well, everyone enjoy it. Hopefully the Eagles win. Hopefully I'm no longer sick by the next time we're on. Joe, hopefully you are a national champion next time we talk. But as always, everyone, thank you for tuning in. Great season here of college football. We are on to college basketball, and we'll talk next week.